WSAV is proud to present Honoring Black History. Now, here's your host, Kim Gusby.
Welcome, and thank you for joining us for WSAV Honoring Black History Special. I'm Kim Gusby. Tonight, we pay homage to some of the people and places that have played a significant role in shaping our community and even our country, inspiring future generations along the way. We begin with one of the worst industrial tragedies in U.S. history. It happened 54 years ago this month in the tiny town of Woodbine. 29 plant workers lost their lives in the thiocol chemical explosion. The story made national headlines, yet today few people are aware of the devastation it caused and the fallout in its wake. Tonight, we revisit what happened on that fateful day and what's being done to make sure the victims are never forgotten. By looking at their faces, you'd never know the trauma that Henrietta Lee, Hattie Jackson, and Emma Gibbs have had to endure. Their eyes tell the story that their lips dare not.
It was a lot to get over. A lot of us hadn't gotten over it yet.
For 54 years, they've burdened the pain of what happened on February 3rd, 1971.
We have never seen a disaster like that in our lives.
They are three of the survivors of one of the worst industrial explosions in our nation's history. It happened at the thiocol chemical plant in the rural southeast Georgia town of Woodbine in Camden County, where munitions were made for soldiers serving in the Vietnam War.
I was one of the first set of women that went there, because I finished school in '69, and I got on there at the end of '69. Good paying job back then.
Thiocol was, to us,
Yes.
blessed.
Sure was. It was.
You had insurance,
Right.
Right. You had your life, you got life insurance, your medical. So it was truly.
It was good.
We thought it was God sent, and it was, but we didn't know
No.
what we was working with.
Yeah.
And Thiocol did not know what we was working with.
They were making trip flares for the Vietnam War, and the materials weren't being stored properly. But the people who worked there didn't know that they were being stored improperly because the United States Army had classified them as a Class 2 flammable, but it turned out later on that we found out these chemicals were actually a Class 7, which is highly explosive. So these workers were in a lot more danger than they knew.
Patrick Longstreth is a local filmmaker. After he and his wife Ann learned about the tragedy in Woodbine, they spent 3 years researching, interviewing victims, families, county officials, and emergency crews.
I first became aware of it from a news report in The Current, which is a local investigative news source, and it was an article by Laura Corley, who went to the 50th anniversary commemoration and just did some great interviews and gave a great summary of everything that had happened. It left a strong impression on me.
In 2024, they released a documentary, now streaming on PBS Real South.
We call it the day that shook Georgia because the explosion could be felt 50 miles away.
A flame in a small building, M132, triggered that massive explosion. At the time, the facility was composed of more than 35 buildings that stretched 7,400 acres. Within minutes, 80 workers evacuated.
Every day we used to have a fire. And they tell us to run outside. The men come in with the fire extinguisher and put the fire out. So that day, I guess everybody thought it was the same thing, just a regular fire, which it wasn't. And the place just blew up.
The results were devastating. 24 people were killed on site or immediately after. 5 later died. At least 50 to 100 others suffered catastrophic injuries. Henrietta lost her sister Gracie.
I saw someone over there burning. I saw a body covered in ashes. And I was telling the people that was in the van with us, I said, help them, help them. Their body is smoking. They have ashes all over the body. And so when they got me to the hospital, days later, a week later, at Duval Medical Center, that's where I was, in the burn, had all of us in a ward together. And they told me later that the person that I saw but the body had done turned in a fetal position and was smoking with ashes on it was my sister. And she was standing right beside me when it happened.
Hattie lost family members as well, including cousins, a sister-in-law, and her brother Charles.
Charles had only worked for Thiokol for 7 days. Never drawed a paycheck. He was 20 years old, never had a family or wife or children.
The fallout was unimaginable.
There was a terrible day. And the next week they called me, asked me did I want to come back to help clean up. No, not right now.
Still traumatized, injured, and grieving, employees were threatened to come back to work or face termination.
I had 4 kids. And so I went back and take care of them.
Hattie also returned, but for only 1 week. Henrietta did not.
I just couldn't take it. I couldn't take it. I meant, like, I don't think I've been down there since that happened.
In the weeks and months that followed, some of the victims and their families filed a lawsuit, which turned into a 17-year battle with the government. 6 opted out. They were never compensated. The victims and their families soon became casualties of the chaos. Stay with us as WSAV honors Black history. What happened in Woodbine continues with an effort to get the victims the respect and recognition they deserve by sharing their story with the masses. Welcome back. The year was 1971. Jimmy Carter had just stepped into office as governor of Georgia, and life was simple for the folks who worked and resided in the rural southeast community of Woodbine in Camden County. But on Wednesday, February 3rd at 10:53 a.m., the unimaginable happened. What transpired in that small town stayed dormant for decades until the daughter of one of the survivors decided to document its history and put it on display for the world to see. Here's part 2 of our story.
Plant blew up at 10:53, 11:30, burned in and had 3 units coming to Kingsland.
Janie Everett is the founder, CEO, and executive director of the Thiokol Memorial Project, a local nonprofit established to honor those she calls the patriots and heroes of the 1971 explosion and rescue efforts.
These people deserve our admiration, our gratitude.
In 2017, with the help of volunteers, she set up a one-room museum in Kingsland, about 10 miles south of Woodbine.
This is his wallet, his union pen.
Every inch filled with artifacts, documents, memorabilia, and photographs, chronicling the explosion while paying homage to the victims of the tragedy. Her mother, Lucille Washington Everett, was one of them.
She had dirt on her face, she had burns on her face, on her wrists, her clothing and stuff were soiled. So I knew that my mother was alive.
Janie was just 17 when the day turned gray.
The birds wouldn't even eat that day. The rain was coming down like tears from heaven.
That afternoon, Governor Jimmy Carter came to Thiokol to survey the damage.
When this explosion happened, it left some of the children without parents, either deceased or parents injured.
There was national coverage in newspapers, magazines, even television broadcasts, but the attention was short-lived. The year after the explosion, Janie graduated high school and left Woodbine to join the Army, ultimately making a career at the Department of Homeland Security and the Department of Energy in Washington, D.C. She returned to her hometown decades later for another mission, to make sure history isn't forgotten.
And these people are the people that led America to our modern time today. Their workplace ethics is a blueprint that we live by now. And it was because of them that SPR was done away at the hospital. We had 19 rooms, 2 beds to a room, but only 6 rooms could be occupied by people of color. That went away when this explosion happened. Jacksonville stood up 5 hospitals. Savannah stood up 5 hospitals. Brunswick activated, Ferndina, Folkestone, even Charleston, the Muse. That's the place where Bertha Hill died. So you had all of these people coming together, all of the fire departments.
More than 600 people from 60 municipalities, along with the U.S. Navy, Air Force, and Coast Guard, responded to the emergency. A few months after the explosion, OSHA, the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, which was already in the works, was established. The 17-year lawsuit that followed was also pivotal in the mass tort litigation against the federal government.
This case, Flossie Marie Massey versus the United States of America, is famous. That's the case where you valued human life. The mass tort litigation under the Justice Department was actually rewritten, and this formula for age versus hourly rate versus calculating out to 30 years or your work lifespan is the same formula that was used for 9/11.
The nearly 60 plaintiffs in the suit asked for more than $717 million in compensation. They received less than $20 million. 25% of that went to their attorneys. Details of the case revealed that it was the U.S. Army's negligence that led to their demise.
And these people, their labor, the labor of their hands, helped liberate what is now, about 96 million people in South Vietnam, and saved thousands of service members' lives. So they made a contribution to humanity. So where is the humanity when we have 6 families that was never compensated for deaths that our government know that they caused? A lot of people, they quietly grieve and they miss these people. They loved them. They were family. And for the government to come and say they were women, they were poor, they were unskilled. How can you be unskilled with 56,322 trip flares resting in the storeroom? Not to mention 3 arsenals that have been already supplied with this stuff. So they tried to minimize or disgrace them or say things that made them seem like they didn't matter. And that was painful.
54 years later, Janie is trying to help her community heal. Her goal, to right the wrongs of the past by leaving a legacy of hope for the future. She's currently working to have the White House honor those who perished with the Congressional Gold Medal. Her vision is to also have a national park that will serve as a living memorial to those who lost their lives and their place in history. Thiokol eventually sold the plant in Woodbine, turning its focus to the U.S. space program. The company made solid rocket boosters that caused the Challenger space shuttle disaster, killing 7 astronauts on January 28, 1986, 15 years after Woodbine. In 2019, the state legislature designated Georgia Interstate 95 Exit 7 in honor of the fallen patriots of Thiokol, a road once traveled by the workers to and from the plant. It honors the 29 people killed on February 3, 1971, and a 30th victim, Joseph Wainwright, who lost his life 2 years later while manufacturing a missile in support of the Vietnam War. Well, this year, 3 women were remembered during the annual commemoration. Trip flare manufacturers Lucille Washington and Leonie Ferguson and nurse Rosella Causer, who treated the injured at Gilman Hospital in St. Mary's. To sign the petition to help get these heroes the Congressional Gold Medal, go to our website, wsav.com/honoring Black History. Tyler Perry's new Netflix movie, The 688, is bringing light to a piece of America's military past that many never knew about. A group of women whose tireless work and dedication helped to boost the morale of thousands of soldiers during World War II. And a Savannah woman was part of that history-making battalion. Her story is next as WSAV Honoring Black History continues. By now, many of you have heard the story of the 6888, the all-black, all-female Army unit tasked with the critical mission of sorting and delivering backlogged mail to soldiers overseas during World War II. But did you know that at least one of the women in that battalion has a local connection? Tonight, the story of the soldier who helped challenge barriers of both race and gender. Annie Beatrice Knight lived in Savannah for 61 years before she passed away in 2010. She was an educator, a civil rights activist, a community organizer, a civil defense coordinator, and a mother.
She was always serving the community of Savannah in some way.
She was also a pioneer, an American hero, a hidden figure, so to speak, whose story was brought to light recently.
Welcome to the Women's Army Corps.
In The 6888, a movie directed and produced by Tyler Perry.
But what I have found is each time I see it, I get a little more emotional because now I'm not looking for just, is it a good movie? Now I'm actually feeling things. And I'm at the point where I don't know if I could do a 5th time because the very end, when they switch from the movie to the real, where the women are actually, those are real live women walking, my mother's spirit comes out.
Born in Lowndes County, Georgia, Knight attended high school and business school in Washington, D.C., later working for the Social Security Administration, the Department of Commerce, and the Department of Public Welfare. In 1943, she went to work for her country.
Her story is that one day she was talking to one of her girlfriends named Ruth, and she said, looked out the window, she says, there's got to be something better than what we're doing here. This is just too, I guess she was bored with that office work. So she said, Ruth, we're joining the Army.
She enlisted in the military, where she started as a code breaker, eventually becoming a member of the trailblazing 688th Central Postal Directory Battalion.
She also talked about Morse code and how she knew Morse code and had to decipher Morse code. Well, we didn't find out until recently that she was a cryptographic code compiler. So she was actually a code breaker, which, by the way, is unique for Black women.
The unit consisted of 824 enlisted personnel and 31 officers drawn from the Women's Army Corps, the Army Service Forces, and the Army Air Forces.
They were confident, secure. I mean, these women continued to be who they were and made us who we are.
Dr. Karen Jordan is Knight's daughter. She was born and raised in Savannah and now calls Beaufort her part-time home. Growing up, she says, she had no idea of her mother's role in shaping history.
I knew she was there. I knew she served. I knew she worked hard. I knew she enjoyed the experience. But it wasn't until, I guess, maybe the teens, 20 teens, somewhere after she passed, that then I began to know the significance of the 688. Charity Adams was in charge, and all of the officers were Black. And the day-to-day operations were entirely done by them.
Their mission, to sort a 2 to 3 year backlog of undelivered letters and packages and getting them into the hands of soldiers fighting during World War II. Their motto, no mail, low morale.
They acted like soldiers. They took this job on like a soldier, as if they were on the front lines.
The women were stationed primarily in Birmingham, England, and Rouen in Paris, France, where, in Knight's words from her brief memoir, they tackled the job with efficiency and speed.
They were given 6 months to do it, and without optimism. It was kind of like, you got 6 months, but you know, you're not gonna, no one was excited about them. No one was encouraging them. They were just saying, well, you got 6 months, fix it. And yeah, they did it in 3 months. And so the next thing they did was to send them to Rouen, France. And they did the same thing there.
By the time they completed their mission, approximately 17 million letters and packages had been delivered, breaking all records for redirecting mail. When Knight left the military in 1946, she attended Howard University under the GI Bill, where she received her degree in French and English. It was there that she met and married Dr. Carl Jordan of Savannah.
A lot of the women from the 688 were fascinated by their experiences in Paris. So she always wanted to learn French. So when she went to college, her goal was to be an interpreter with the UN, a French interpreter.
Unaware at the time of her significant contribution to our country, Knight dedicated the rest of her life to service.
She was always doing something, always growing and changing and improving and encouraging us to do the same.
It wasn't until after her mother passed away that Dr. Jordan decided to build a community of descendants by searching for other 6888 offspring. They are now 100 strong and on a mission to form a structured organization to gain control of their mother's legacies so their extraordinary stories will continue to live on.
We're in the process of talking about where we want to go. We want to have something formal because we want people to be able to come directly to the 6888 descendants. We want to be the 6888 historian. This is something they gave us that was special, that we didn't know they were giving us. And so we want to give back to them.
There are 14 known members of the 6888 buried at Arlington National Cemetery. Annie Knight Jordan is one of them. In 2022, the 6888 received the Congressional Gold Medal 76 years after their service. To date, there are only 2 known survivors of the battalion, 140-year-old Fannie McClendon and 101-year-old Anna Mae Robertson. In case you didn't know, here's another local connection to the 6888. After her military career, the battalion's commanding officer and the first African-American woman to become an officer in the Women's Army Corps, Lieutenant Colonel Charity Adams Early, who was also, by the way, the highest-ranking Black woman officer during World War II, at one point served as the Dean of Students at Georgia State College, now known as Savannah State University. Greenbrier Children's Center has been a refuge for Savannah's youth for more than 75 years. After the break, the history behind the home and the impact it continues to have on the community. Stay with us. You're watching WSAV, Honoring Black History. For the past 75 years, Greenbrier Children's Center has been a place of refuge for young people who've often had to deal with circumstances beyond their control. But to understand its mission, you must consider its past. Everyone and everything has a story. Greenbrier Children's Centers began with the vision for a brighter future for Black children in Savannah.
The mission of Greenbrier has always been near and dear to me. Being able to provide a safe place for some of our most vulnerable, some of our most traumatized children in the community. And it's a place of hope, of healing, of love, of care, for children who have had some really difficult challenges and traumatic experiences.
Gina Taylor has been the center's executive director for more than 2 decades.
By the time I was 10 years old, both my parents were deceased, and we went to live with my grandparents. So I know that I could have easily been a child here at Greenbrier Children's Center had it not been for my grandparents.
Taylor says prior to 1944, Black children without parental support were placed on the Brown Farm, a 400-acre Jim Crow-era penal camp where inmates labored in poor conditions.
And these children were there through no fault of their own. You think about the prison systems today, how much different were they then? And there was no protection for these children on a penal farm. The county or the city or no one had made any kind of provisions for Black orphan children.
But a charitable donation from local philanthropist Adeline Graham changed that. In her will, she left $2,200 to be used for an orphanage.
And at the same time, Alpha Kappa Alpha, Gamma Sigma Omega chapter sorority, they were looking for a way that they could serve their community. They found out about the money that was left in the will by Miss Graham, and they went after it. One of the things that the AKAs did was meet with the Reverend Ralph Mark Gilbert, who at the time was a known community organizer. He was involved in helping to establish what is called the May Street Y, sometimes called West Broad Street Y, but he was involved in that. But he was also the pastor of the First African Baptist Church at the time. So they partnered with him, and he was able to bring 22 churches on board.
They used the seed money to establish the area's first dedicated center for Black children. Before finding its permanent home on Hopkins Street, Greenbrier occupied a number of spaces, including the Women's Army Corps building on Hunter Army Airfield and several homes in the Carver Village community.
A lot of people call it an orphanage. They didn't treat us like orphans. They treated us like their children.
Carolyn Maynor and her two brothers were some of the first children to walk through Greenbrier's doors. She recently shared her story at the agency's 75th anniversary gala.
My parents were separating, and we were placed at Greenbrier. I can't remember everything, but I have never been treated as royally as I did at Greenbrier. I was a little girl, 4.5, and I was confused. I'm 80 years old now. And this was in 1949, and I was confused, and I said, what's going on? And they greeted me. There were 3 ladies, as I recall, and they greeted me with so much love.
After 2 years at Greenbrier, Maynor was reunited with her parents. Sadly, she lost her mother the following year, but she credits the love and support she received at the center for guiding her success. As an adult, she became the first Black telecommunications operator at the executive offices of the president during the Nixon era. She then worked for the U.S. Attorney's Office in Washington, D.C., the District Attorney's Office in Savannah as a victim advocate, and the Fulton County Courthouse before returning to D.C. to work for the U.S. Office of Special Counsel until her retirement in 2005.
I became a counselor for victims of crime because so many kids that came had been abused physically and sexually and the whole works. That hadn't happened to me. But I feel that they were in a good place because once you leave Greenbrier, you are a different person.
Maynor's lived experience is what Taylor says they strive for every day through its enduring mission of uplifting our most vulnerable children and paving the way for a brighter future.
Our ultimate goal is taking this campus and making it an oasis of services for families and children so that families can have more or less a one-stop shop.
If small acts of kindness have the potential to make a difference in someone's life, consider this. When Miss Maynor entered Greenbrier, she says one of the house mothers comforted her with a cup of chocolate pudding. Because of that, 75 years later, Miss Maynor says she keeps chocolate pudding in her refrigerator. I'd be remiss if I did not mention the contributions of Greenbrier's first executive director, Doris Roberts, who created the agency's very first child care center. They currently operate 3 in addition to accredited and affordable early learning programs, family preservation and counseling services, and an emergency shelter for children and young adults. The center also operates more than 70 Project Safe Place sites in the Savannah area. WSAV Honoring Black History continues after the break. When we come back, the fight to get a former Braves outfielder his pension. He was once considered the fastest man in baseball, but few know the story and the struggles of former Atlanta Braves outfielder Gary Cooper. Tonight, we take a look at the life of the Garden City native longing for a second chance at his field of dreams.
I'm going through the time for one day.
One day. That's all 68-year-old Gary Cooper needs to collect a pension from Major League Baseball. It's been 45 years since the Garden City native donned a uniform for the Atlanta Braves. Cooper was an outfielder who, despite insurmountable odds, realized his dream of making it to the Major League.
I wasn't but 18, and all of a sudden Atlanta, drafted me. I ran out of high school, it was amazing.
Once upon a time, Cooper was a standout athlete, a living legend at Groves High School. He excelled in track, basketball, and football, but baseball was his passion.
And I had a great high school career. I played all sport, and then till Atlanta, got in the mix. And the thing about it, they never came and scout me. I thought I was going to end up with the Dodgers.
In 1975, just days before graduating, Cooper was selected by the Atlanta Braves in the third round of the MLB draft. He played 6 years in the minor leagues, even making his way back to his hometown for a 3-season stint with the Savannah Braves Double-A team at Grayson Stadium. But the reception was not what he expected.
You got a hometown kid, you packed the stadium. The only time the stadium was packed when they used to have opening night. That was Union Camp night. And that was the only time. But other than that, you could hear people talking to each other in the stadium.
Despite the lack of support, Cooper kept working hard. And at the age of 23, he got the call he'd been waiting for.
We was in Jacksonville, and Eddie Hossey just took me out the lineup. I had no reason why. I said, what's going on? So he pulled me to the side. He said, hey, you got to meet the team in Pittsburgh. I said, man, you crazy, man. He said, yeah, man, you got to meet the team in Pittsburgh. Hank Aaron calling you up. And then I ended up catching the plane, went to Pittsburgh, got there, so excited, I ended up in the wrong locker room. And then when I met Willie Starcher, Dale Parker.
And on August 25th, 1980, Gary Cooper made his big league debut.
So in that game, I believe it was in the 9th inning, the Braves had a lead, and Braves manager Bobby Cox inserted Coop into the game in left field as the defensive replacement. And with 2 outs in the 9th, Pirates speedster Omar Moreno laced a line drive base hit to left field that took a strange bounce off the AstroTurf there, off the artificial turf, and it went over Coop's head. But he turned around, he grabbed the ball, barehanded it, and fired a strike into second base. And Omar Moreno was out trying to stretch a single into a double, and that was the end of the game. So that's how Gary Cooper made his major league debut with a spectacular defensive play in left field in Pittsburgh against the world champion Pittsburgh Pirates.
Cooper spent 42 days on the Braves roster, playing in 21 games. But as fate would have it, his career was cut short, just 1 day shy of qualifying for a major league pension. He was sent back to the minors 1 week after a rainout against the San Francisco Giants, a matchup the Braves were not required to make up.
You hurt my pride, So I toughed it out, and the next year I just went to spring training and announced my retirement.
The years that followed weren't kind.
And after I left baseball, I ain't see nobody. When I was playing baseball, they called, Coop, need some tickets. No problem. After I came home, boom. I stayed in an abandoned house for 13 years, off and on, But it didn't stop me.
In fact, the former athlete's life took a turn for the better 14 years ago when he met local lawn care company owner Robert Jonas. Jonas not only hired Cooper, but embraced him as family. And after hearing his story, he got the ball rolling to get Coop compensated.
Obviously, we're swinging for the fences. I got in touch with a Rod Nelson on the way to the job. And, I called him up and, he started looking him up immediately. And he said, yeah, I can't believe I've never heard of Mr. Cooper. I think, unfortunately, that's been his song and dance kind of fallen through the cracks. So he got involved, introduced us to Dave Mercy and our current attorney, Mr. Kevin Campbell, and just trying to figure out what we can do to help him out.
After 2 years researching Cooper's plight to obtain pension, Dave Mesry, an award-winning journalist out of Detroit, wrote an article last spring for ESPN's multimedia platform, Anscape.
Where this goes, but as things stand, I still think it's possible if the Braves or any major league team would consider signing Coop to a one-day contract, that would kind of be a workaround because the union is not going to budge.
The article was a hit. Soon, Coop's story gained traction nationally and locally. It even caught the attention of Savannah Mayor Van Johnson, who asked the Braves via social media to sign Cooper to a one-day contract to qualify for his pension. Meanwhile, Jonas started a petition on change.org, requesting the Braves to do the same. So far, it has garnered more than 18,000 signatures.
It is an extraordinary situation, to miss it by one day. That's a hard pill to swallow. So we're just trying everything possible to try to help him, and that way he can enjoy his later years.
Jonas has also started a GoFundMe that has raised more than half of his $20,000 goal to help Mr. Cooper with living expenses. But despite the groundswell of support and several appeals, Cooper's decades-long struggle to obtain a pension from the Major League Baseball Players Association is slowly losing momentum. He's hoping this story will lead to another big break into a better season.
One more day would certainly be a fitting ending to Gary Cooper's story.
I ain't giving up. I went this far, I ain't giving up. So I think something's gonna happen. Because 25 started off good for me. Got a car, which ain't had a car in 40 years. Now I got transportation. That made me feel so good. And then I got my son. He always had my back. It's gonna happen when I least expect it. So I ain't gonna sit and worry, but I'm getting old, but I ain't gonna, getting gray, but I ain't gonna stress out on it. I ain't homeless no more. I got my big boy right there, so I'm good. If it happened, it happened. And one thing I can say, I tried. Did that, done that. So what else can do but leave it up to him.
2 years ago, Gary Cooper was inducted into the Greater Savannah Athletic Hall of Fame, a recognition some say is long overdue. Dave Mesry flew in from Detroit to attend. A side note to this story, in 1968, when legendary former Negro Leagues pitcher Satchel Paige needed 158 days on an active Major League roster to reach the 5-year minimum required to receive a pension, 19 teams turned him down. But the Atlanta Braves signed the 62-year-old as a part-time pitcher and advisor. Although he never played a game that season, Paige eventually earned his pension. Let's hope they do the same for Mr. Cooper. If you'd like to sign the petition to help Mr. Cooper get his pension, there's a link on our website. Go to wsav.com/honoring Black history. Still to come, one of the area's few Black-owned farms. How 2 brothers kept history and a promise alive. We'll be right back. 2 years ago, we brought you the story of a couple of brothers who developed their green thumbs and shared their harvest in Port Wentworth for decades. Sadly, Robert Uncle Bob Johnson, one of the co-owners of the Promised Land Farm, passed away in July of last year. Tonight, in his memory, we are paying tribute to the man his family describes as being of the soil and the soul by replaying that report. Just off Monteith Road sits a rarity in these parts.
This is a farm setting surrounded by a city. And if you look at it, the city now is enclosing on the farm.
Produce as far as the eye can see.
This time of year, well, September, we do our fall garden. All greens, collards, cabbage, kale, broccoli, mustards, rutabagas.
Known for its popular collard greens, the Promised Land Farm is steeped in history.
We bought land, actually purchased it in '99, but I started farming it in '89. I came over and started farming with Zach Steele.
Meet Robert Johnson, affectionately known as Uncle Bob, and his brother William, Uncle Bill. They are the owners of this 31-acre oasis, one of the only black-owned farms in the area.
It means a whole lot to have something that your hands, you work for. You didn't go out there and steal, robbed somebody, something that's hard work and benefits. I don't know another black-owned farm here in the Chatham County. I know people have gardens, but actually a farm, I don't know of any.
You could say farming is in their blood, but it wasn't something they liked to do growing up. It's what they had to do to survive.
I grew up on a farm in Effingham County, raised up single parent. My father left when we were real small. I must was about 4 years old, and when he left, and I could barely remember him. But my mother kept us together, and by being in Effingham County, which is farming, we had to work on a farm. So I learned what I knew from farming with my mother.
Today, farming is their passion.
If you can learn to enjoy it, it's never work. I remember say I never worked a day on the farm which I learned what farming is all about.
And just as rich as the soil they till is the story behind it. Local lore says at the end of the Civil War, the property was granted to the formerly enslaved Roderick Steele through the 40 acres and a mule promise made by Union General William T. Sherman through his Special Field Order No. 15. Steele is said to have helped Union soldiers en route to Sherman's march to the sea.
And he wanted to tell me that his dad hauled water with General Sherman when he came through here during the Civil War. So they kept him out of the war, and he supplied food for the soldiers. So, and he loved farming. So that's all he ever done was farm. So when I started farming, he allowed me to plant an area, and he's planted beside me for many years. And he eventually passed.
His descendants kept the land until they sold it to the Johnson brothers in 1998.
In 1 year, I said I was college free right now. We had this whole field full of college.
Soon after buying the property, the brothers built this cottage from the ground up, initially for shelter. Today, it's gradually morphing into a makeshift museum full of keepsakes and heirlooms, reminders of their lineage. They include pictures like this one of his great-grandparents, his grandparents, and his mother. There's also a collection of shirts they've worn through the years, symbols of the sweat equity put into the land. Now up in age, Uncle Bob at 77 and Uncle Bill at 79, the two are faced with challenges to maintain the farm. Bill is dealing with a number of health issues. He's had 5 strokes and is on dialysis 3 days a week.
A year ago, and when I made a decision, I had to quit farming. And it wasn't easy. I didn't want to give up, and I still don't want to give up.
Bob does what he can, but is training younger hands to help. Enter Rodney Parker Jr. and his daughters Rebecca and Ray. They visit the farm about once a week. It's a part of their homeschool curriculum.
It's really been exciting, you know, for my kids to just see them a lot more comfortable digging in the sand. You know, I like to get dirt under my nails, and they enjoy to get their, you know, dirt under their nails too.
They plant, prune, and then pick their own produce through the Promised Land's Rent-a-Row program. For a small fee, you can grow whatever you want, as long as it's legal in the state of Georgia. The farm itself is also free from herbicides.
Outside of just eating better, just a sense of like family and like camaraderie. My wife and I, we're not originally from Georgia, you know, so this feels like close to family.
To the brothers Johnson, everyone is like kin, so they often pay it forward by giving away excess to local shelters and veterans.
Horse in the field we can't sell, better to give somebody than it lets you go bad.
Bob, a Vietnam vet, was a flight engineer and mechanic in the Army.
I retired from Hunter Field in '89, 160th Task Force, Night Stalkers. The motto of Night Stalkers, don't quit.
When he returned home, he reconnected with his calling.
I feel harmony, I feel love, peace, relaxation. It's a great feeling.
As for the farm's future, well, that remains unclear. One can only hope that the beautiful bounty of this promised land will be passed down to future generations. Robert Johnson is buried at the Georgia Veterans Memorial Cemetery in Glenville. Rest easy, Uncle Bob. According to the U.S. Department of Agriculture, of the country's 3.4 million farmers, only 1.4% are black, owning only about 0.5% of America's farmland. The Promised Land Farm is still open Monday through Saturday throughout the year. Stay with us. WSAV Honoring Black History special continues after the break with a tribute to those we've lost. Welcome back. We continue to honor Black history not only in February, but every day. There's an African proverb that says, as long as you speak my name, I shall live forever. As we close, we'd like to pay tribute to some of the giants we've lost over the past year. May we continue to call their names and remember their extraordinary legacies. For WSAV, I'm Kim Gusby. Thank you for joining us.